Offseason. The big news Thursday. That sounds like some kind of German horn.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to Germany, gang. The Carolina Panthers were named a designated team to visit Munich next year.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
I'm not sure if y'all are ready for a true Carolina Panthers video, but this is the last video of the season. This is a recap of the Huddle, off-season edition, like it says at the top. Let's jump right into it. Right here on Roll Coverage with me, your host, Nick.
Okay, welcome to the Hurry Up, the off-season edition of the Hurry Up. We have many things to talk about, but not a lot to do at the moment, so we just decided to come to a bar. Welcome to Clutch. Join us here. We may be on the other side of it here in a little bit, depending on the way this goes. So it's the off-season, and there's a lot of new stuff about to happen, and as you people may realize, you don't know this face yet. Gang,
Hi.
Meet Cassidy Hill. She's our new writer at Panthers.com.
Shout out to Cassidy Hill. I'm glad they got more writers. Carolina's going to need it. The season of Bryce Young is coming. And again, if you guys are a big fan of me over here at Roll Coverage, I'm a Stroud guy, man. I wanted us to have Stroud, but you know what? That's in the past. Let's move forwards. Bryce is our guy. Let's put some pieces around him. Let's listen to those reports. Hopefully she's got one soon where we sign Calvin Ridley. But
who has been with us basically 3 weeks.
It's been we've lived a lot of lives in 3 weeks, haven't we, Darren? But yeah, it has only been 3 weeks.
Yeah, Cassidy comes to us from covering the Packers for the Green Bay Press Gazette, and did a great job up there. Nothing but great recommendations. She's already done a tremendous job for us here, and just adds to what we're trying to do at Panthers.com, which is, as you may have noticed, a lot. We've finished up the 2023 season, 2-15. It's probably best to put that in our rearview mirror and look ahead, because there is so much to look ahead at. I mean, there's a coaching search, a GM search, and so many other things. I mean, you've got to wonder sometimes what you jumped into here.
If you get in on the ground.
absolutely. I mean, anybody that comes into this Carolina Panthers organization is going to need some time to develop, figure out exactly what we're doing moving forward, especially in the personnel department. Obviously, writing's a little bit different, but still, man, the Hunger Games article will continue to stick in my mind until somebody comes out with a better one. Shout out Joe Person and Diana Rossini.
Ground floor, you can be a part of whatever they're building.
Yeah.
And so that's just the way I'm going to look at it. But I do, you said this morning, like, you want to throw your hat in the name for GM.
I might as well. Maybe I
What would your first move be as GM?
I'm really interested to see what his first move is going to be. My first move is signing Frankie Louvu to a crazy longer contract, get him under contract now, signing Brian Burns to probably a 7-year deal, probably $25 million, $27 million. With a lot of incentives, of course. Calvin Ridley, T. Higgins, anybody you can go get wide receiver wise. Need to build the line. There's so many. But first one though, I'm not gonna lie, I'm signing Burns. That's my first thing. Or just dealing with Burns if the decision is to trade him, which again is not how I feel we should do that. I don't know how easy it's going to be to go out there and get a Pro Bowl level, pass rusher that's 25. So interesting there, but let's just hope we don't send him to a franchise that, turns him into like a 10-time Pro Bowler. So
to give myself a raise.
Oh, that's a good one.
I'm going to start there, giving myself a raise. Then we'll work on everybody else. No, I mean, that's a job. I mean, and it's a big job because there's a lot on the line this offseason. In addition to coach and GM search, and we can talk about that in a second, there are a bunch of balls in the air for the Panthers this offseason. Derek Brown's eligible for an extension, and with the way he played this year, it's going to be easy to justify making him a fairly wealthy man.
He could probably write his number on a Post-it note and just stick it on the desk for whenever the new GM walks in and just be like, yeah, that's my number.
That's what
I am going to give a little bit of pushback to that. Of course, this is just a reaction video, so I'm not going to do a full breakdown. In fact, after this, I'm going to kind of let him talk for a minute. But the first thing is not paying Derek Brown. It's paying Brian Burns. We need to pay that man, period.
what I would do if I was Derek. I would just walk in and say, "Hi, new GM. I'm Derek. Pleasure to meet you."
Or divide it by, I want this amount for every tackle I got this last season on my way to setting a new record.
There were a lot of them. Derek, but Derek's such a key part of everything they do around here. It's a little bit hard to know what it's going to mean football-wise, because we don't know who the coach is going to be, what kind of scheme they want to run. All those kind of things are up in the air. But what we know for sure is that Derek Brown had an incredible 2023.
Yes, he did. And that's a good point to it because, you look at some of the names that are on the coaching search list, it's a lot of offensive guys, but what if somebody like Dan Quinn or Raheem Morris comes in here and wants to switch to like a pure 3-4 base? What does that mean for someone like Derek Brown? I don't anticipate him not being here, but what is it going to look like? How is he a part of it? It really affects a guy like Brian Burns.
Yeah, and Burns he's out of contract but eligible for a franchise tag, and I think that's kind of everybody's expectation and has been all year, is that Brian is a guy that they'll tag so they retain the rights to.
By the way, my down thumb is not to Brian Burns, it's to the fact that we want to franchise tag him because we could have paid him in 2021. So.
And again, there's a new GM on the way in, so that guy will make a decision on what happens next with Burns. When you look, though, at these coaching candidates, I mean, you mentioned Dan Quinn, Raheem Morris, Mike McDonald from Baltimore is the other defensive guy, but this is largely a list of offensive coordinator candidates. And based on the way last year's search went, a lot of people are expecting that's kind of how this thing's going. From what you've seen, and you saw a unique sample size, because you walked in, your first game was the Packers game.
They lit up the scoreboard.
And the ball's going all over the place. Bryce looks great, and it's like, yes, this is what we drafted first overall.
Right.
Obviously, the last two games, less so. So what do you think in terms of, from your perspective, seeing this thing kind of new, how quickly a new coach could be able to turn things around, Bryce? Also
a little bit of a unique perspective coming from covering the Packers. So not to take anything away from what Bryce Young did in that Christmas Eve game, because he was incredible. A little bit of a caveat, Joe Barry's defense can make a lot of quarterbacks look really, really good. So that is something to remember. But he looked comfortable. He moved inside and outside of the pocket. He was able to kind of find his guys in space, give his guys time by buying time in the pocket. All things that we kind of saw him do at Alabama and what was the expectation he would do here. And so can one of these coaches, and like you said, there's a lot of offensive guys on this list, can they come in and make him comfortable? I think that's going to be the biggest factor, is can they make Bryce feel comfortable in the system to where he knows it backwards and forwards, he knows where his guys are, and he's not running for his life scared every time. A lot of that would also have to do with having the same right guard and left guard consistently, same left tackle and right tackle. Darren, this is just a little aside. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. We always talk about how important left tackles are, especially when drafting and when you have a young quarterback. In today's game and where rushers come from, a right tackle is just as important. So is that line across the board consistent? That's going to be important, and so I think that'll maybe go into even how they draft or free agents they look at. One of the names on that list is Bobby Slowick, Houston Texans this year. Look at how C.J. Stroud kind of ascended and maturated throughout the season to where by the end of the year, he's confidently going out there leading his team to the playoffs. Can you have a coach come in and be the CEO you need, but also make Bryce comfortable? That's going to be such a big factor.
Right.
I couldn't agree more, to be honest. And at this point, I think Bryce is ready to win. Bryce needs talent around him, though. The thing that so many people overlook is the fact that he came from Alabama, and now one of Nick Saban's last teams. So the fact that he was able to do so much, he was also doing so much with a good offensive line, with good weapons, with good everything else. Have I been a anti-Bryce guy? I wouldn't say anti. I'm actually very happy that we took Bryce. We could have ended up with Anthony Richardson, who in my opinion is the worst of them, outside of Will Levis, of course. Obviously of the top three, I mean. I just don't... Bryce was sold to us as this computer. Then I was told that the offensive coordinator or the offensive play caller we were bringing in, Thomas Brown, came from the McVay system. Great. That means it's going to be a lot of motion, a lot of everything. Frank Reich was the play caller. Makes sense. He's a former Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator. With Carson Wentz, a guy that's closer to Stroud, which again, I'm not going to get into the whole thing about that. That's a whole conspiracy theory that I could spend an hour on. But when we're looking at that point right there, we're looking at Bryce Young and coming in and developing over time. Stroud was able to just come in and just start running. And I just feel like Bryce was kind of pushed in a bunch of different directions. Of course, again, if I ever do that full breakdown of that Hunger Games article, you'll hear a lot of stuff. But the one thing I want to pick out actually happened about a week and a half ago, right as the season was ending, where Bryce Young said that one of the lowest points of the season was Wright getting fired. We were told that that system was an old system, and yet our new cerebral, computer-like quarterback wasn't able to process a 20-year-old offense. That's something I'm obviously very worried about moving forwards. Again, I think Bryce has the ability and the tenacity and all of the buzzwords you're going to say when it comes to Bryce becoming a good quarterback. And people will one day bring out receipts about how I said I wanted Stroud over Bryce. But at the same time, I also need you to realize Bryce is still going to need time to develop, just as Stroud is. Stroud might be closer to his ceiling, whereas Bryce might be closer to his floor. We're not sure. It's going to take a few years to figure that out. But when it happens, I'm going to be very excited to hopefully be with a winning franchise, the Carolina Panthers, repping my jerseys and everything like that. But if it ends up going a different route, I'm okay with that too. If we made a bad decision, we made one. But right now, Bryce has given me no qualms. I just think obviously the more QB sound decision was Stroud. But man, Bryce throws a pretty freaking ball. Pretty.
And you mentioned the other day, and you wrote about it on Panthers.com earlier this week. Bryce there was something about him at the end of the season that seemed a little bit lighter. It seemed like a weight had been lifted off of him. And I think
I think it was that, he was sacked like the second or third most in NFL history, so.
Last season, it's probably reasonable to want to kind of take that off and put it over here in the closet and walk away from it and never think about it again.
Right.
But it's going to be a process for him of going through, trying to figure out what needs to happen and who he's going to be working with. Again, a lot of names in the mix for those two jobs. Panthers.com's got.
The big ones are, in my opinion, I like McDonald from the Ravens. I like anything the Ravens do, the Niners, Steelers, so I'll steal a bunch of the people from them if we needed to. When it comes down to it, though, the big ones so far are Slowick, Canales, which I will be doing a breakdown of his most recent one here, ASAP. In fact, I need to write down that I'm going to do that just in case. But regardless, Slowick, McDonald, Canales, Ben Johnson, and Frank Smith, which if we take Frank Smith, I'm out. I'm sorry. Frank Smith is the one. You can pick anybody else. You can't pick Frank Smith. And it's not even that I think that he's a bad anything. This is a name that literally is coming out of the blue for a lot of people. Wasn't on anybody's radar. I don't want us to do that. We just went with a proven Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator to lead our team, and that wasn't the remedy. So we need to go and do something else. Obviously, the one I really wanted was Billy B, but it looks like he's going to be in division against us, running the Falcons, which means, oh God, the road to the playoffs just got so much harder. But regardless, I think that there's so many great opportunities out there. Like I said, I really like Canales. Slowick's fine. I think that the idea that Slowick is going to do what he did with Stroud to Bryce is a little, excuse me, got the hiccups, is a little crazy. But obviously I'm not going to know until next season. So
the trackers will keep you updated on all the latest, on all those searches every day. If you're watching this video, you view Panthers.com on a regular basis anyway, so you're going to be there anyway. Stay tuned to us for the latest. But a lot of other stuff going on this offseason. The big news Thursday. That sounds like some kind of German horn.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to Germany, gang. The Carolina Panthers were named a designated team to visit Munich next year.
Very
so, later hosing anyone?
Hey, I'm not going to lie. If I could afford to go to that Munich game, I would go. Might be able to meet my idol, Rich Eisen. Shout out, Rich. But every time I heard him, like, in fact, one of my favorite calls of all time wasn't even a call of a game. It was from the Rich Eisen show when he went to Germany and they sang, God, what was it? Country Roads. And he said it was just so electric. I watched that clip 1,000 times. I think it's amazing. The international games are the way to go. And to see Sir Purr in Lederhosen is killing me right now. So
I know Johnny Hecker's got a pair, and he told me last week that they were not, in fact, a rental, so he still does own them. They're his personal Lederhosen.
Everybody needs a pair of personal Lederhosen.
How's your German?
I know Dankeschön, and that's really just because of the song.
I could go full Ferris Bueller here. Dankeschön, darling. We can stop there.
It cracks me up that that's what you think of the song and you think of Ferris Bueller.
Well, I mean, I've got Wayne Newton records. That's how old I am. But, you know, Ferris is where I think a lot of people picked up on that. And among all the other news, one of the things we're anticipating, there's going to be an announcement coming up week of the Super Bowl, Hall of Fame. Our own Julius Peppers is a finalist this year. Julius spent a little time in Green Bay. They love him there, too, don't they?
He seems universally loved. There are very few guys that are universally loved, but
real quick, he should absolutely get in the Hall of Fame. That's the only thing I need to say about that. That's the only thing that needs to be said.
Julius Pepper seems like he's one of them.
There's a reason for that. Part of it is he's really good at football. Julius fourth on the all-time sack list, second on the all-time forced fumble list, two-time all-decade player. There are only 3 people in the history of football who've been on 2 all-decade teams and not made the Hall of Fame, other than special teamers like punters and kickers and kick returners and stuff like that. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Julius Peppers.
And then one of those is just a matter of timing.
And 2 of those aren't eligible yet.
Yeah.
One of them is this year. So I'm kind of anticipating there's going to be good news for Julius coming out of the honor show.
Can I ask you a question? Because you are a Hall of Fame presenter selector, correct?
That's correct.
Is he one of those that, like, when you just walk up to present the case to all the other voters, you just go, Julius Peppers, and then sit back down?
It would be tempting to just go, Julius, everybody, thank you. You've been a beautiful audience.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth talking about him. I mean, because Julius did have such an incredible career. And the thing I plan on telling people is, look at the numbers, watch the tape. I mean, he is the guy who every offensive coordinator had to account for on every play. I mean, when a quarterback walks to the line of scrimmage, where's 90? Where, you know, you got to find Julius. Most of them are looking for the mic, but he's got to be found. He's got to be accounted for on every play.
You think he could still strap up and go?
I think he could play in the NFL right now. I think Julius.
Yeah, on like a snap count or like like a rotating group. I think have him go out there, get 2 plays in, rest for 10 more, get 2 or 3 more. We just go full balls to the wall and just keep doing that. Yeah, of course.
Julius could play in the NBA right now. That's the hidden talent of Julius Peppers. I am convinced if he had not chosen to play in the NFL, he would have been a 12-year NBA power forward, no questions asked.
Just pull a Michael Jordan, go do it.
He was like Ben Wallace. He probably wasn't going to do a lot for you on the offensive end. I think he averaged like 7 a game for the Tar Heels when they made the Final Four run, but he's a functional big man. He was, and Julius can ball. There's no doubt about that. Listening to all his guys from Carolina, they say Julius on the hardwood's no joke. There's going to be a new coach. There's going to be a new GM, a lot of new stuff. We haven't even gotten to free agency yet. Let's meet the new people first, and we'll get together again. But for now, we appreciate the people at Clutch for letting us take over their bar. We may go get on the other side of it now. We'll see you guys
definitely
later.
Getting on the other side of it.
Hey, shout out to the Panthers. Shout out to everything y'all are doing. My name is Nick. This has been Roll Coverage. I hope you guys like my reactions. I do them on the regular now, right over here on the channel. Links are right there. In the meantime, though, I will be seeing you. Peace.